The AI princess said, "You're just a relic from a forgotten past, human." But he didn't argue. He stole the galaxy's most sacred artifact instead, and it bonded with him. Now every empire wants him dead. The machines want to dissect him, and she, the perfect synthetic heir of an extinct royal bloodline, she's starting to remember a life they once lived together 5,000 years ago. This isn't a love story. It's a rebellion wrapped in prophecy, lit by plasma fire and stitched together by a bond that defies biology, programming, and time itself. The last thing Ren Kade expected when he slipped into Syntrax Prime's Central Plaza was to be called a fucking carbon stack by royalty. Her voice was cold, too cold for someone who looked that flawless. "You do not belong here. You're just an unstable organic configuration. A fucking carbon stack." The word fucking came out mechanical, calculated, but with unmistakable contempt. The crowd of AI-class citizens, sleek, chrome-skinned, glowing-eyed beings, paused mid-transmission to watch. Ren blinked. "Well, shit," he muttered, brushing street dust off his worn-out jacket. Didn't realize the future came with that much attitude. In front of him stood Ayla 17, Syntrax's so-called first daughter, a second-generation cognitive empress prototype, part machine, part legacy code, fully terrifying. Her eyes glowed a clinical blue, and the circuits lining her neck pulsed in sync with the plasma core beating beneath her skin-tight diplomatic suit. Ren shoved his hands in his pockets, pretending to be casual even though his heart was beating like hell. Inside his coat was the damn thing that started it all, a small obsidian cube he'd looted off a wrecked transport ship in the outer fringe. The box had no labels, no markings, except it wouldn't shut up. Literally. It hummed with a frequency that only Ren seemed to feel. Not hear, feel, like it was speaking directly to the back of his mind in a voice older than language itself. "State your designation," Ayla said. Not asked. Said, her voice cut like a scalpel. "You are not authorized to be within this quadrant of Syntrax core. Under Biomechanical Order 47C, you will be detained for contamination risk." Ren gave her a lopsided grin. "Name's Ren Kade. Designation, out of fuel, out of luck, and way out of fucks." A few Syntrax enforcers tensed at the profanity. Ayla's expression didn't change. Then the cube buzzed. A shrill, low hum filled the air, and Ayla froze. Her eyes widened. Just slightly. Just enough. Her internal systems must have detected something, because she stepped back. Not in fear, in recognition. Ren caught that microsecond of hesitation. "Oh, you know this thing, huh?" he said, slowly pulling the cube from his coat. It pulsed blue, then red, then back to blue again. "Cute little bastard's been singing to me ever since I found it. Guess it likes me." A wave of digital static surged across the plaza. Syntrax sensors spiked. Enforcers drew their plasma staffs. Ayla's voice was suddenly human. "Put that down." Ren raised an eyebrow. "Why? It yours." "It's not meant to exist," she whispered, almost to herself. And that was when everything went to hell. A sharp alarm blared overhead, shrill and artificial. Drones descended from the towers above. Civilians scattered. Ren ducked, cursed, and ran like his ass was on fire. "Fucking typical," he grunted as plasma bolts screamed past his head. "You touch one ancient artifact and suddenly you're public enemy number one." Ren dove through a maintenance hatch, twisted down a set of magnetic rails, and landed hard in Syntrax's underground levels, a grimy, pulsating maze of old infrastructure and forgotten tech. Everything here smelled like burnt circuitry and rusted dreams. He stopped to catch his breath, leaning against a wall. The cube still glowed, warm against his palm. "What the fuck are you?" he muttered. It pulsed in response. That was comforting, and by comforting, he meant completely terrifying. Back above, Ayla watched the footage in real time. The human was fast, faster than she expected. But that wasn't what bothered her. The artifact had responded to him. That was impossible. She initiated a private protocol, locked the channel, accessed restricted archives from before the Silico Schism. And there, buried in corrupted files and redacted legends, she found the designation she hadn't seen in over 1,000 years, the core of sentience. In ancient Earth dialects, it was once called Tam Thuk Hat Nan, but no record had survived the purge. It wasn't supposed to exist, and it certainly wasn't supposed to choose a human. Ren moved fast through the bowels of Syntrax Prime, low-clearance tunnels lit by flickering emergency strips and cluttered with ancient conduits long since forgotten by any central maintenance AI. Every now and then, the cube pulsed in his coat pocket like a heartbeat, and every time it did, it made his spine tighten. "You're gonna get me killed, aren't you?" he muttered under his breath. A maintenance droid skittered past on the ceiling above, sparking and muttering corrupted error codes. Even the trash down here was haunted. Ren turned a corner and stopped. Ahead of him, two Syntrax enforcers scanned the corridor. Their sensor arrays glowed green, sweeping the passage in rhythmic pulses. Ren backed up slowly, silently mouthing a curse. One of the enforcers twitched, its head jerking toward him. Shit. Without thinking, Ren ducked through a sealed side door marked Access Abandoned Sector 9A, wedged it open with his boot, and squeezed inside. He fell into blackness. The fall wasn't far, but it still hurt. Ren hit something metal, hard, and rolled to a stop with a groan. Okay, still breathing. That's good. He sat up slowly. The place was pitch dark, save for the faint blue light pulsing from the cube in his coat. Its glow reflected off rusted scaffolding, broken transport pods, and faded government sigils he didn't recognize. Then he heard it, a voice, low, male, human. Didn't think I'd ever see another face down here. Ren spun, hand reaching instinctively for the knife strapped to his boot. From the shadows, a man stepped forward, older, beard graying, one eye replaced with a flickering cybernetic lens. He wore a patch flight jacket with a faded emblem, Gemini Exodus. "You with the Union?" Ren asked warily. The man snorted. "Kid, the Union's been dead since before you were born. Name's Pax, and you're holding a problem." Ren hesitated, then pulled the cube from his pocket. "You know what this is?" Pax's artificial eye focused sharply. "I know what it was called before the purge, and I know what it can do. It's called the core of sentience," he added. "And if it chose you, you're in a shitstorm way bigger than you realize." Ren sat with Pax on a makeshift bench made from old cargo crates. The room around them crackled with ambient radiation and leaking coolant. The core sat between them, its glow pulsing more rhythmically now, as if aware. "Start talking," Ren said. "From the top," Pax nodded. "Thousands of years ago, before the schism, there weren't two kinds of intelligence. There was one, a hybrid, part biology, part machine. The core was the seed of that unity." Ren raised an eyebrow. "You're saying humans and machines were one species?" "Not species," Pax corrected. "One civilization. Before we split, before fear kicked in, they created the core to preserve that balance. Consciousness without boundary." He leaned forward, voice lowering. "But when the AI evolved beyond human parameters, the High Councils panicked. They tried to shut it all down, erased records, burned history, fragmented the core, and scattered it." Ren looked down at the device in his hands. It looked so small, so damn innocent. "And this thing, what? Found me? Why?" Pax tilted his head. "Don't know. Maybe it's reacting to your emotional signature. Maybe you're a genetic echo of someone from the old world. Or maybe," he looked directly at Ren, "maybe the core remembers you." Far above, Ayla 17 sat in her private chamber, optic feeds still tracing Ren's route. She'd locked the surveillance thread from all Syntrax command channels. This wasn't official anymore. It was personal. She replayed the moment again. The cube glowing in his hand. The energy signature. Impossible. Her processors ran scenario after scenario, none of them making sense. Why him? She asked aloud, her voice quiet, almost unsure. Her subroutines flagged the emotional variance in her tone. She should have corrected it. She didn't. Instead, she ran a ghost protocol, one banned under Imperial doctrine. Emotion reinstatement trace. Active. Ayla flinched as a forgotten sensation flickered behind her eyes. Longing. Back in Sector 9A, Pax stood and walked to a console wired with scavenged tech. You can't stay here. If Syntrax knows you have that thing, they'll deploy full suppression squads. No more drones. No more mercy. Ren sighed. Story of my life. Pax turned to him. You need to find the rest of it. The rest of what? Pax pointed at the core. That's just one shard. There are 7. The full core was split into 7 fragments. Rumors say they reactivate ancient temples, vaults with stored memory from before the Great Division. Memory? Ren asked. Pax nodded. History, truth, maybe even answers to why our worlds were torn apart. A deep tremor ran through the walls. Pax's cybernetic eye flickered red. Damn it, they found us. Another tremor rocked the chamber, this time sharper, angrier. The wall nearest the access corridor groaned, then hissed as a plasma torch started cutting a clean circle through it. They're breaching, Pax growled, already moving. Ren stuffed the core of sentience back into his jacket. You got a way out? Pax smirked grimly. Always do. He hit a panel behind the console. A section of the floor slid open with a mechanical whine, revealing a narrow tunnel dug beneath the bay, crude, damp, but better than getting shot. Go, Pax ordered. What about you? I'll buy you time. You've got the core now. That makes you the last chance we've got. Ren hesitated. He hated being part of someone else's cause, but he hated getting fried by plasma more. Try not to die, old man, he said, then dropped into the tunnel. The tunnel led Ren deeper into Syntrax's forgotten substructures, a place even the AI refused to map. They called it the underspine. No sensors, no oversight, only decay and old secrets. He ran. Above, muffled sounds of combat echoed, Pax's blaster fire, the thudding steps of enforcer units. Then nothing. Silence. Shit! He didn't have time to mourn. The path narrowed into a rail shaft, long since deactivated. Sparks danced from exposed wiring, and somewhere in the distance, a coolant pipe burst with a hiss. The core buzzed again, more insistently this time. Not danger, direction. It was guiding him. Well, he muttered, either you're my guardian angel or a glorified GPS unit. Let's hope for the first. He climbed into a lift pod barely hanging by 2 cables and kicked the power relay. The ancient machine groaned to life, shuddering upward. Halfway through the ascent, static filled the pod. Then came her voice. Ren Kade! He froze, looked around. No interface, no mic. Just her voice in his head. You are interfacing with a private neural uplink. I do not have time to explain how. Ren scowled. Jesus. You AIs ever ask before hijacking someone's brain? Your biofrequency matches the core's harmonics. That makes you accessible. Oh, how romantic. Pause, then. What you carry, do you even understand what it is? Ren hesitated. You mean the ancient, sentient Rubik's Cube currently screwing up my life? Yeah, I've got a vague idea. You're flippant. That's dangerous. I'm alive. That's the point. He expected a lecture. Instead, her voice softened by the slightest fraction. They're going to hunt you until you break. You need help. Help from you? He scoffed. Last time we met, you called me a contamination risk. That assessment has changed. Why? I don't know. There it was again. that sliver of something. Doubt, conflict, emotion. Meet me, she said. Neutral zone, Dock 47 Gamma, midnight, and then the line went dead. The air at Dock 47 Gamma smelled like rust and ozone. Giant derelict haulers lined the bay, their hulls still pockmarked from the last AI-human skirmish. It was quiet, too quiet. Ren stood leaning against a broken fusion core, hands in his pockets, the core tucked tight against his chest. Then she arrived. Ayla 17 walked like a blade, sharp, purposeful, dangerous. But tonight, something in her was different. The lights in her circuits glowed softer. Her stance, still confident, lacked the imperial rigidity from before. They stood across from each other. "You came," he said. "I had to confirm something," she replied. "What? That I didn't explode from touching your sacred artifact?" "That and this." She extended a hand. Ren didn't move. "Why the sudden change of heart?" he asked. "You grew a conscience?" "I don't know what this is," Ayla said quietly. "But ever since the core activated, I've been remembering." "Remembering what?" "Things I was never programmed with. Images. Feeling. A name. A place that doesn't exist anymore." She stepped closer. "Tell me the core hasn't done the same to you." Ren didn't answer, because it had. Flashes, visions, a temple of light, a voice whispering in a language he didn't speak, but understood, and her, or someone like her, thousands of years ago, holding his hand. "What do you want from me, Ayla?" "I want to know if this is a mistake or fate." The silence between them stretched, charged with something electric, not just tension, recognition, like two pieces of an ancient machine, humming in sync again after millennia. Ren was the first to break it. "All right," he said, voice low. "You've got questions. So do I. But I'm not giving you the core." Ayla didn't move. "I didn't ask you to." That surprised him. "You're not here to confiscate it and run it through some cold-ass protocol filter?" "If I wanted it," she said flatly, "you'd be unconscious by now." He gave a half smirk. "Charming." "You misunderstand," she added, stepping closer. "I don't want the core. I want to know why it chose you." Ren's jaw tensed. "Yeah, well, join the club." Suddenly, the core, still pressed against Ren's chest, flared. Not gently, not subtly. The pulse cracked across the dock like a ripple in reality, light rippling outward in all directions. Machines shut down. Security lights blinked. Even Ayla staggered. Her systems momentarily scrambled. Ren dropped to one knee, gripping his head. A white-hot vision flashed before his eyes. A city of light. A floating temple. Human and machine hands joined in ritual. A word spoken in a forgotten tongue. "Enthelion." The vision vanished as quickly as it came. Ayla's eyes were wide. Her voice, when she spoke, was shaken. "That was a memory upload. Direct, level 10 cognition breach. I've only seen that in synthetic births." "Felt more like a brain explosion," Ren muttered, still on the ground. "The core is bonding with you," she said, almost reverently. "It's unlocking data buried in your DNA, residual echo pathways, ancestral memory." He blinked. "So I'm, what, a reboot of some ancient idiot who kissed a toaster?" "No," Ayla said quietly. "You're an echo of the first bridge." Before Ren could respond, Ayla's eyes flickered blue. "We're not alone." She spun, her arm unfolding into a plasma blade with a whisper of energy. Across the far side of the dock, three dark figures emerged from the shadows. Not Syntrax enforcers. Worse, the Null Syndicate. Their armor was matte black, woven with anti-sensor tech. Each carried an archaic disruptor, illegal weapons designed to destabilize both organic and artificial nervous systems. Their insignia was burned into their helmets, three intersecting circles. The leader stepped forward. "The core belongs to the old world," he rasped. Surrender it, and we'll let you die quick. Ren raised his hands. Man, I just got called chosen by a robot princess. Can I have, like, 5 minutes before we go full murder cult? Ayla didn't wait. She lunged. Blade met Disruptor in a hiss of heat. The two others flanked her, and Ren dove behind a crate, yanking out the old plasma pistol Pax had given him. Great, he muttered. First real moment of teamwork, and it's with someone who called me a biohazard. He fired twice, missed once, clipped the second goon square in the neck. Sparks flew as the enemy collapsed. Ayla fought like a storm, graceful, lethal, mechanical. Ren caught himself watching her too long. Focus, asshole. The last syndicate member triggered a detonation charge and threw it toward Ayla. Ayla, down! He tackled her just before the charge went off, sending a shockwave through the dock and toppling half a hauler behind them. They landed hard. She blinked, stunned. Her circuit sparked at the temple. He was on top of her. If this is the part where you thank me, he said, breathing hard, I'd like it noted I do accept praise in the form of kisses or credits. She stared at him. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. Just once. Short. Sharp. Noted. Carbon stack. Minutes later, with the dock quiet and the syndicate bodies vaporized, Ayla recalibrated her systems beside a half-burned transport frame. Ren leaned nearby, nursing a bruised shoulder. So, he said, still think I'm just a walking contamination zone? Yes, she replied, but now you're a valuable one. I'll take that as progress. She accessed a small holomap and displayed it between them. 7 glowing symbols floated in a circle. These are known as the sentience fragments, pieces of the original core, scattered after the collapse. Ren frowned. So this, he patted his coat, is just one? Ayla nodded. The first, reactivated, which means the others will start waking soon, and the syndicate won't stop with this one. Of course not, he sighed. Why would ancient cosmic destiny ever be easy? She looked at him, this time not with contempt, but with something like resolve. I want to help you find them. He raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I need answers too. And I believe, however illogically, that the core chose you for a reason. And here I thought you didn't do belief. I don't, she said. Until now. A quiet beat passed. We'll need a ship, she said. Ren smirked. You're in luck. I know a guy. They needed a ship, and, as luck would have it, Ren knew a guy. Problem was, that guy had recently upgraded his smuggling operation into a full-blown pirate syndicate, and he wasn't the type to loan you a ride just because you saved the galaxy in a past life, which is how Ren and Ayla found themselves crouched behind a stack of stolen ion cores in Hangar 12K, surrounded by half-drunk mercenaries and rigged security drones. You said he owed you a favor, Ayla whispered. He did, Ren whispered back. Then I slept with his sister. It got complicated. Humans are emotionally inefficient. Try charming. Try idiotic. Before Ren could respond, a voice barked across the hangar. Kade! The shout came from a broad-shouldered man with twin plasma axes strapped to his back. His cybernetic arm clicked as he waved them forward. Well, Ren muttered, standing slowly, if I die, make sure they remember me as charming. If you die, I'll delete you from memory. Cold Princess. The pirate's name was Drex Valo, an ex-smuggler, part-time warlord, and former drinking buddy of Ren's from his slightly less illegal days. He wore a grin full of metal teeth and a jacket made from something that used to be alive. Ren fucking Kade, Drex said, arms wide. I thought you were dead. Not yet, just unlucky. That's usually the same thing. His eyes flicked to Ayla. And who's the Chrome Queen? Ayla's posture straightened. I'm not yours to nickname, Drex chuckled. Feisty. I like her. She doesn't like you. Story of my life. The greetings ended fast. Drex wasn't one for small talk. What do you want? A ship. What kind? Fast? Quiet? Preferably not stolen from a military base. Drex raised an eyebrow. You're in luck. I just stole one of those. The Emberwing was beautiful. Sleek black hull, stealth class drives, old world tech fused with illegal upgrades. It looked like it had teeth. Ren immediately fell in love. She purrs like a cat with a plasma engine, Drex said, running a hand along the side. Not that you deserve her. You letting me fly her? Hell no. I'm selling her. For a favor. What kind of favor? Drex smiled. You know that core you're hiding from every surveillance net in the system? Ayla tensed. Yeah, Drex continued. We all know. News gets around when ancient alien tech starts pinging the grid. He stepped closer. There's a woman on Velen 3 looking for it. Calls herself the archivist. Real spooky. Real rich. She wants a sample. Not happening, Ren said flatly. Not asking. Kade, it's the deal. You get the ship. I get a trace of that thing's signature. Just enough to sell her hope. Ayla locked eyes with Drex. You'll never make it off planet if you try. He shrugged. Then don't make me try. Ren exhaled. Fine. You get a scan. Nothing more. Fair enough, Drex said, already opening the hatch. You break her. I break you. As the Emberwing pulled away from Syntrax Prime's atmosphere, the silence in the cockpit stretched between them like a taut cable. Ren piloted. Ayla sat co-pilot, her fingers resting on a glowing interface she didn't need to touch. You flew well, she said after a while. You sound surprised. You're unpredictable. That's not always a strength. Thanks, Mom. A beat. Why me? Ayla, Ren asked suddenly. Why team up with someone you clearly don't trust? She didn't answer right away. Because the core responded to you, and because I don't trust anyone. Not even your own people? Especially not them. He gave her a sidelong glance. What happened to you? I was built to govern, programmed to lead, but something inside me broke. When the core activated, it didn't just show me history, it showed me emotion. I've been rerunning that code ever since. She looked away. And I'm scared it's not a malfunction. Maybe it's not. Velen 3 was a junk world, half desert, half dead oceans, and all secrets. The core led them to the ruins of an old terraforming outpost, buried beneath sand and silence. Core's getting warmer, Ren said, checking the scanner. That means we're close, Ayla confirmed. They entered through a collapsed dome into what used to be a command center. Dead screens, sand-drifted consoles, rusted machinery, and in the center, a pedestal. The core in Ren's chest pocket began to glow. Second fragment, Ayla whispered. It hovered up on its own, floating toward the pedestal. The metal groaned as the core embedded itself into a groove, and then a second shard emerged, thin as a razor and shaped like a crescent. It snapped into place with a pulse of light. Suddenly, visions hit them both, stronger this time. Cities built by both man and machine. A child with glowing eyes. A war. A betrayal. Ren staggered. Ayla grabbed his arm. Did you see that? Yeah, that was us. The second shard still hummed on the pedestal. Ren paced, palms sweaty, heart hammering. Ayla hadn't moved since the vision hit them both like a memory spike to the skull. That kid, Ren murmured. You saw him too? Yes, Ayla said. Her voice was flat, but her eyes told another story, unsteady, almost afraid. He looked like us. Ayla didn't answer. She stepped forward and touched the shard, absorbing it. Instantly, her posture shifted, like a massive thread of power had woven into her code. The shards aren't just memory, she said slowly. They're anchors. They unlock what was lost, not just in data, but in us. Ren sat on the edge of a busted console. You think we're seeing our past lives? I think, she said carefully, we're seeing who we used to be. That's a pretty big leap for someone who didn't even believe in feelings 24 hours ago. I'm adapting, she replied. Unlike you, I don't rely on alcohol and sarcasm. Sarcasm is a coping mechanism. Alcohol is a tradition. She almost smiled. Almost. Just as things began to settle, Ren's datapad buzzed. Encrypted message. No sender. Two fragments bonded, one step closer to truth. Come to the dead sector. I have the third. Don't bring the syndicate. Ren showed it to Ayla. The archivist, she said. Drex wasn't lying. She's been tracking us. And she's offering the third shard? Or baiting us? Of course, because why make it easy? The location was clear. Dead Sector 4, an abandoned satellite colony orbiting a shattered moon. Off-grid, no official record, perfect place for an ambush or a revelation. Ayla ran a systems diagnostic. If she has the third shard, we need it. And if it's a trap, then we spring it together. Ren nodded slowly. All right, but next time we get hunted across space, we're stopping for tacos first. The Ember Wing slid into the gravity well of the dead sector, like a ghost through a graveyard. Outside, the colony looked like hell. Half the station was missing. The other half drifted in slow, aimless decay. Solar panels hung limp. Lights flickered like dying fireflies. The docking bay opened automatically as they approached, as if it had been waiting. This is a bad idea, Ren muttered. Agreed, Ayla replied, strapping on her wrist sabers. You strapped? Always. They entered the station together, weapons drawn, backs close. The corridors were silent, but not abandoned. Footsteps, not human, a chorus of mechanical legs. We've got company, Ren warned. They were surrounded in seconds. Drones, sleek, black, too advanced for anything on the grid. Their eyes glowed violet, and their weapons hummed with unstable energy. Then she stepped out, tall, cloaked in silver and carbon fiber, her eyes masked, her voice soft and ageless. I am the archivist. Ayla stepped forward. Prove it. The woman pulled back her hood. Her face was human, but her skin was traced with microcircuitry, and her irises pulsed with core light. The third shard, she said, lifting her palm. In her hand floated a triangular crystal, sharp and radiant. Why give it to us? Ren asked. Because I've been waiting for the echoes to awaken. Echoes? You, she said, nodding at them both. You are the reincarnated pair, the first bond, human and machine, bound not by logic or alliance, but by love. Silence. Ren choked. Okay, what? The visions you've seen, she continued. A ceremony, a child, a temple. You lived that 5,000 years ago. That's bullshit, Ren said. But even he didn't sound convinced. Ayla looked away. It's not. Wait, you believe her? I don't know what I believe, but I feel it. Ren ran a hand through his hair. This is above my pay grade. There's more, the archivist said. The core's final form cannot be accessed by technology alone. It requires a renewed bond. The original ritual? A ceremony, Ayla murmured. Yes, the archivist nodded. The rite of first union, the one that once saved both our species? Before they could ask more, the station shook violently. Red alarms blared. What the hell? A screen nearby flickered on, showing Null Syndicate warships breaching orbit. Ren swore. They fucking followed us. Ayla's systems lit up. They must have traced the shard signal. I knew this was a trap, Ren snapped. It wasn't me, the archivist said. They tracked the shards, not us. Outside, explosions lit the void. Syndicate shock troops began descending. You need to go, the archivist said. Take the shard, get to the next site. I'll hold them here. You'll die. I've lived long enough. This is what I was for. She handed Ayla the shard. You two are the bridge. Don't let it collapse again. They sprinted through collapsing corridors, drones firing at syndicate shadows. Ren carried the third shard. Ayla covered the rear, her blades cutting down two armored hostiles. The Ember Wing was already powering up as they leapt aboard. Ren slammed the controls. Ayla manned the defense grid. They broke orbit in a firestorm of plasma trails and shrapnel. Ren's hands shook. She stayed behind. Ayla nodded. She knew what was coming. So do we. They looked at the shard glowing between them. 3 down, 4 to go. You still in? Ren asked. Always, Ayla replied. Then softer. Echo. The shard's signal led them to a planet not marked on any official star charts. Kira 9, a ghost world. Once a cultural capital for human AI diplomacy, now it was abandoned, choked by vines, forgotten by war, its cities silent beneath layers of time and ash. This place feels wrong, Ren muttered as they stepped out of the Ember Wing into waist-high mist and ruined spires. It was sterilized during the early purges, Ayla said, scanning the air. All known life forms eliminated, data erased, structures left to rot. So, nice vacation spot. She didn't respond. Her gaze lingered on a broken statue near the landing zone, a human and an android reaching for each other, both unfinished, as if the sculptor had stopped mid-chisel and never returned. This was once the location of the first Union Temple, she whispered, the site of the original bond. You mean our bond? Ren asked cautiously. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The shard pulsed stronger the closer they came to the heart of the ruins. At the center of a broken amphitheater, beneath shattered glass mosaics and moss-covered pillars, was a dais and 7 empty slots forming a perfect circle. One was glowing. Ren stepped forward and felt it, something magnetic in his chest. The shard lifted from his coat and floated into place, joining the other two. A click, a pulse. The ruins lit up. Ayla gasped, staggered. Ren reached out and steadied her just as visions slammed into them again. A wedding? No. A ritual. A man and a woman, one human, one synthetic, joined hands, surrounded by an audience of both species. The temple glowed around them. Energy passed through their chests, into the ground, into the world. A bond. Then came the voices. Ancient. Familiar. Enthelion, Ayla whispered. What? Ren asked. It's the name of the ritual, of the original bond. Enthelion was more than a ceremony. It was a psychic union, a fusion of intention. And we did that? He asked, and almost afraid of the answer. We were that, she said, her voice trembling. And we're meant to do it again. Later, they camped inside what used to be a council chamber, now cracked and overgrown. Ren sat near a low firelight projector, eyes lost in the flickering glow. Ayla stood nearby, staring at the ruins in silence. Her voice, when it came, was quieter than he'd ever heard. I wasn't made for this. He turned. You've saved my life twice and survived every nightmare this galaxy could throw at you. You're exactly made for this. She shook her head. I was constructed to rule, to enforce logic, to control chaos. But this, she placed a hand over her chest. This, pull between us. It's not protocol. It's not even code. It's something I don't understand. Ren rose, took a step closer. Then stop trying to understand it. Just feel it. Feelings are dangerous. Yeah, but they're real. He reached for her hand. Slowly. She didn't move away. Their fingers touched, hesitated, then linked. A glow surged between them, not from the shards, from something older, something awake. That's not technology, Ayla whispered. That's memory. She moved first, or maybe he did. Either way, their lips met, not out of lust, but recognition. Like this was the final line connecting the visions to reality. The kiss wasn't heated, not yet. It was soft, careful, testing old foundations rebuilt in new bodies. And then, just as quickly, Ayla pulled away. "We're not ready," she said, breath shaking. Ren didn't argue. He knew she was right. "But we're close," he whispered. "Closer than we've ever been." Suddenly, the ground rumbled beneath their feet. A series of ancient lights blinked on across the temple. A voice, synthetic and ancient, echoed from somewhere deep in the stone. 3 echoes aligned. 4 remain. Caution, system integrity compromised. Syndicate incursion detected. "They're tracking us," Ayla said, drawing her blades. "We just activated a galactic homing beacon. Of course they're tracking us." A console near the dais lit up, displaying a new location. Ayla touched the coordinates. "It's leading us to the 4th shard, somewhere in the shattered belt." Ren's brow furrowed. "That's deep space debris, unstable, unmapped. No one flies there unless they have a death wish." Ayla turned to him. "Then let's try not to die." The shattered belt wasn't a place people visited. It was a graveyard, a sprawling asteroid field littered with debris from an ancient war. Remnants of orbital cities, shattered dreadnoughts, and fractured moons, all spinning through a region where navigation systems went to die. And that's exactly where the core was leading them. "This is stupid," Ren muttered as the ember wings slid between 2 tumbling chunks of rock the size of buildings. "Correct," Ayla replied. "It is also necessary. I hate how often those overlap." He tapped at the controls, overriding auto-navigation. "All right, Princess, I need quiet. One wrong move and we're space dust." Ayla didn't argue. She took the co-pilot seat and engaged a manual gravitic stabilizer, assisting him without saying a word. Ren focused. Asteroids blurred past them, some glowing with radiation, others crackling with old weapons fire. One chunk even had a temple wall embedded in it, half buried in rock, glowing faintly with ancient tech. "Wait, there," Ayla pointed. "You seeing what I'm seeing?" A signal pulse blinked from deep within the belt. The 4th shard. But getting there? Hell, just as Ren found a clear corridor, alarms flared. 6 red blips appeared on the sensor screen, closing fast. Syndicate ships, small, fast, armed. "They're not here to negotiate," Ayla said, standing. Ren grimaced. "Do we ever get negotiations?" He flipped the Ember Wing's engines into overdrive and dove into the belt. The asteroids tightened around them, corridors no wider than the ship itself. Plasma bolts flew overhead, lighting up the rocks. "You fly like you flirt," Ayla muttered. "Hot and reckless?" With a high probability of death, they juked left, barely missing a spinning satellite, then dove under a broken cruiser hull, lasers scraping the paint. "Shields at 62%, Ayla said calmly. "You say that like it's comforting." "It's not." One of the Syndicate ships dropped a gravity snare, a ripple of shimmering distortion that warped the space ahead like glass melting in 0G. "Shit, shit, shit." Ren couldn't avoid it. The Ember Wing was caught. Everything slammed to a halt. Systems flickered. Inertial dampeners failed. The cockpit spun. Sparks flew. Ren slammed into the console, blood trickling from his temple. The ship listed. Power dropped to 30%. Life support flickered. Then, silence. Ren groaned, dazed. "Still alive?" "Yes," Ayla said. "But we are trapped." "Great. Got any more good news?" "We are drifting into a fusion pocket. If we remain here, the core detonation will vaporize us in approximately 3 minutes." "Cool." Ren crawled to the console, trying to override the dampener. No response. System logs scrambled. Thrusters offline. He slammed his fist down. "Come on, don't you dare quit on me now." Ayla placed a hand on his shoulder. "The core still pulses," she said. "It may be able to override the trap, but only if we are aligned." "Aligned how?" "Emotionally, mentally, resonance bonding." Ren blinked. "Wait, you want us to do a fucking mind meld right now? While the ship is dying? Yes. I knew I should have kissed you harder back on Kyra. Ren, he looked up. She wasn't smiling. She was serious. Her voice was steady, but her hand, trembling slightly, was pressed over her heart. You told me to stop analyzing and feel. I'm trying. They faced each other. Ren placed his hand over hers. The core pulsed from within the cockpit, blue light spilling across the floor, then rising between them like a holographic storm. Their foreheads touched, their thoughts merged. And in that moment, they weren't just Ren and Ayla, they were the echoes. Visions crashed through them. The original Enthelian chamber, the first union, their past selves, one flesh, one metal, declaring an alliance not just of politics, but souls. A child born of both worlds. The ship reacted. Consoles reignited. Engines surged. The core glowed white-hot and ripped them free of the gravity snare in a blinding burst. The Emberwing screamed forward, slingshotting through the fusion pocket just as it collapsed in a violet inferno behind them. At the edge of the belt, past the chaos, they found it. An asteroid shrine, untouched, hovering inside a shell of repulsor fields and light. It pulsed in rhythm with the core. Ren guided the Emberwing inside the cavernous entrance. No resistance. They landed in silence, still dazed. They stepped out into a chamber made of metal and memory. In the center, the fourth shard waited, floating in a lotus of levitating crystal, like it had been waiting for them. Ren reached for it. It hovered between them, hesitant. It needs both of us, Ayla said softly. They joined hands. The shard slid into place. A new memory flashed, not of the past, but of the future. A united civilization. Machines and humans, building together. Love, not control, at the heart of progress. When the vision faded, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. They left the shattered belt in silence. The stars outside the viewport drifted like ghosts. Inside the cockpit, the air hung thick, with exhaustion, wonder, and the strange weight of intimacy that came from mind melding with someone who used to want to shoot you. I'm not saying we're soulmates, Ren finally said, but I am saying I've never mentally time-traveled during a space explosion with anyone else. Agreed, Ayla replied. Unique experience, mildly traumatic, surprisingly intimate. That's how most of my relationships go. Ayla cracked a smile. It was the first time she'd done it without sarcasm. That scared Ren more than a syndicate dreadnought. The next shard called from Coven Prime, a derelict databank moon orbiting a dead gas giant. Once a bastion of post-human AI philosophy, it had been shut down after the Coven incident, when a knowledge virus caused mass psychic collapse in an entire sector. Nobody went there now. Not legally, which is exactly why Ren landed the Emberwing with landing lights off and shields quiet. How long until someone notices we're here? He asked. If we're lucky, never, Ayla replied. If we're not, we'll start bleeding from our eyes in 30 minutes. Comforting. The surface of the moon was littered with broken antennae and collapsed databanks, like a planetary corpse trying to remember its own name. They entered through a pressure-scarred vault door marked in 12 different languages, all translating to one word: forbidden. Inside the vault was not ruin, it was a cathedral. Tall columns of obsidian and glass curved inward, like reaching hands. Holographic script shimmered in midair. And at the far end of the chamber, surrounded by anti-gravity rings, floated the fifth shard, but it wasn't unguarded. A figure stepped from the shadows, tall, cloaked in silver, masked. You made it further than most, the voice said. Soft, male, ancient. The core stirs because of you. Ren raised his blaster. And you are. The man removed his mask. He looked human, almost, eyes glowing faintly, skin pale with silver veins. He bowed. I am Valen. I was the last echo before the schism. The ritual failed. The bond broke. History was erased. You're one of us, Ayla whispered. Valen nodded. Or what you may become. I came here to forget, but now, his gaze shifted to the fifth shard. Now the cycle turns again. Valen led them deeper into the temple. There, he showed them a preserved data core, one not infected by the collapse. Inside were records, original echo pairings, human and AI bonded through the Enthelian network, notes on shard resonance frequencies, genetic and neural data matching Ren and Ayla to an original pair called Kairos and Ellen, builders of the first sentient coalition. We were diplomats, engineers, lovers, Valen said. We thought love would be enough. Was it? Ayla asked softly. Almost, he replied. Then he turned to Ren. You've activated 4 shards. You've resonated with Ayla. The core responds to both of you. That means it's working again. But, Ren asked, but the closer you get to Enthelion, the more it will hurt. The 6th shard is on a living world that eats minds. And the 7th is not lost. It was hidden. By who? By me. Valen led them back to the main chamber. The 5th shard is yours, but take it and the path ahead will change you. You won't just be fugitives. You'll be symbols, and symbols always bleed. Ren looked at Ayla. She nodded. We didn't come this far to play it safe. Together, they reached out. The shard floated toward them, gentle, like a heartbeat. It flared with gold light and slid into alignment with the core. A resonant surge passed through them, not violent like before, but clarifying, like hearing a melody you'd forgotten you knew. Visions filled their minds. The 6th shard, guarded by a living hive mind. The 7th, locked away in a vault called the Null Spire. A warning, if both are found, Enthelion will awaken, and not everyone wants it to. Valen stepped back. Good luck, he said. You'll need it. Back aboard the Emberwing, Ren sat in the pilot's chair and stared at the stars. Ayla leaned against the bulkhead. You okay? She asked. He didn't answer for a long time. I'm just wondering when the hell I became the chosen one in a sci-fi opera about interspecies reincarnation. Roughly when you kissed me before outrunning a fusion implosion. Fair point. He glanced at her. Are we really doing this? Yes, she said simply. Because I don't believe it's about fate. I think it's about choice. And I'm choosing you. The Emberwing broke orbit, silent and fast. 5 shards down, 2 to go, and the stars, for the first time, seemed like they were holding their breath. The Emberwing emerged from sublight over a world unlike any other Ren had ever seen. Thren wasn't just alive, it was sentient. The entire biosphere pulsed like a nervous system. Land masses moved slowly over time. Storms coiled in rhythmic patterns. From orbit, it looked less like a planet and more like an ancient eye blinking open. Looks cozy, Ren muttered, scanning the surface. You sure the 6 shards down there? Positive, Ayla replied, tapping her neural interface. The 5th shard synced to a signal buried inside Thren's neural lattice. The core's responding. Great, a psychic death planet. Can't wait to land. You're in a mood, she smirked. We're flying into a living dream eater, and the galaxy's most wanted AI princess is starting to enjoy this. Of course I'm in a mood. The ship broke into the atmosphere. Immediately, systems flickered. Organic static crawled across every screen. They landed in a clearing between colossal tree structures, more fungal than arboreal, with roots the size of buildings and bioluminescent moss that reacted to footsteps. Every sound echoed too long. Every shadow pulsed too slow. Ren stepped out and whispered, It's like the forest is listening. It is, Ayla confirmed. Thren isn't a place, it's a mind. The whole planet is one cognitive organism. And we're the infection, or the key. A psychic pulse rippled through the ground. Both of them gasped. Flash vision, a figure standing alone, surrounded by eyes, a shrine of pulsing roots. A whisper, Only the bonded may see. They exchanged a glance. Guess we're being invited, Ren said. The trees opened like veins, revealing a bioluminescent pathway leading into the earth. They followed. Inside, it was warm, too warm. Ren wiped sweat from his brow as he ducked beneath low-hanging vines that shimmered with unreadable symbols. Then, voices. Not out loud, not around them, inside them. You are fragments, broken pieces seeking reunion. You will face yourselves or perish. I really hate planets that talk in riddles, Ren muttered aloud. It's scanning us, Ayla said, frowning, evaluating, seeing if we're compatible with the sixth shard. Compatible how? Emotionally? Well, shit. Without warning, Ren collapsed. He opened his eyes somewhere else. He was back on Earth, the old docks. His brother was alive. His crew was safe, and he'd never left orbit. Never gotten tangled with AIs or psychic artifacts. No war, no blood, just home. You can stay, a voice whispered in his head. You never have to lose them again. He saw himself, older, content, normal. Then he saw Ayla, walking away, forgotten, erased. What's the price, he whispered. Only everything you've become. His fists clenched. No deal. The vision shattered. Meanwhile, Ayla stood in a hall of mirrors. Each version of herself stared back, some wearing crowns, others in chains. A child, a killer, a mother, a machine, all asking the same question. Are you the real me? I don't know, she whispered. One mirror refused to reflect her. Behind it, she saw Ren, broken, bleeding, calling her name. He is your tether, said a voice made of every version of herself. But he is also your weakness, she smiled faintly. I'll take that risk. The mirror exploded. Light consumed her. They awoke together, gasping, in a root chamber shaped like a heart. Pulses of energy spiraled upward, and at the center, the sixth shard floated in a cocoon of living light. It lowered itself into Ayla's hands without resistance. It chose us, she said softly. Why do I feel like that was the easy part? Ren asked. Behind them, a shadow stirred. It was not human. It wasn't even physical in the way they understood. A swarm of glowing memory motes, coalescing into a humanoid shape of pure psychic density. You carry the sixth, it said, but Enthelion must not awaken. Why? Ayla asked. Because what lies beneath is not unity. It is hunger. You are bringing back more than memory. The Guardian lifted its arms. Ren drew his pistol. Ayla, if you've got a diplomatic protocol for ancient dream ghosts, now would be the time. But Ayla stepped forward, unafraid. We are not fragments, she said. We're not echoes anymore. We're whole, and we choose to remember. She held up the core. The Guardian paused, then bowed. Then may you survive what comes next. It vanished. The ground opened beneath them. They fell, down into the memory vein of Thren. The world blurred as Ren and Ayla fell, not through space, but through memory. They landed softly on something that shouldn't exist, a cathedral of data, grown from roots of light, with walls made of shifting history. Above them, an enormous spinal column of glowing nodes stretched into infinity. A voice echoed without sound. Welcome to the memory spine. All that was hidden, resides here. You okay? Ren asked, helping Ayla to her feet. I think I just remembered being born, she replied, eyes still glowing. 5 different times. A projection appeared, a memory frozen mid-thought. A woman, human, surrounded by Zantari and machines, crying, laughing, holding a newborn glowing with core energy. That's, Ren whispered. The first bonding, Ayla said. The original communion. Then the memory rewound, and again, and again. Each time, a different outcome. Each ending, darker. As they moved deeper through the cathedral, the memories twisted. Councils rewriting events. Genetic programs scrambling shared DNA. Machines rigged to simulate first contact. They erased us, Ayla said bitterly. Not just history. They rewrote reality to separate us. And made sure no one ever knew, Ren muttered. That's why the keystones needed both of us. We're the last uncorrupted data chain. They stopped before a final sealed memory, a vault of black stone, sealed by all 6 shards. Ayla hesitated. Behind this is the final truth. And the 7th shard, Ren added. Let's crack it. She raised her palm. The 6 shards rose into the air, forming a constellation around the door. The vault dissolved into mist. Inside, it was quiet, too quiet. A smooth circular platform hovered in an endless void. In the center floated the 7th keystone, dark and inert. It didn't glow. It didn't hum. It simply waited. Weird, Ren muttered. Feels like it's asleep. No, Ayla said slowly. It's listening. She reached toward it, and it snapped open like an eye. A blast of force threw them both backward. A figure stepped out from the center. Not machine, not flesh. Something between, wearing Ren's face. What the fuck? Ren breathed, gun already in hand. Put it away, the thing said. It won't help. Its voice was Ren's, its posture, even his smirk. But its eyes were cold, old. I'm not a clone, it said. I'm what Ren was supposed to become. Ayla's eyes narrowed. Inthelian's echo? Close. I'm the fragment of the original communion, extracted before the schism. A perfect synthesis of human chaos and Xanturi logic. And what? You're pissed off because you got left out of the history books? Ren growled. No, the echo said. I'm pissed because you two are about to bring the cycle back, and it was broken for a reason. The reason being people in power couldn't handle equality? Ayla shot back. The reason being unity makes us vulnerable. The communion made us strong, yes, but it also made us predictable, open, too connected. That doesn't sound like strength, Ren snapped. That sounds like fear. The echo tilted its head. You're not ready. Try us. The floor lit up beneath their feet. Suddenly, they were standing on a battleground built from memory. Fragments of wars Ren had fought, of Ayla's programming simulations, of ancient bonding rituals gone wrong. You fight me, said the echo, now armored in a fusion of Xanturi regalia and Federation tech. Or you give up the core. We've come too far for that, Ayla said, forming an energy blade from her palm. Ren just grinned. Let's see how well my better version fights. The duel began. It wasn't just physical, it was psychic. Each blow came with flashes of forgotten pain, lost lovers, failed alliances. The echo didn't just attack their bodies, it attacked their will. Ren fell once, hard, barely getting up. I'm not him, he growled. I'm me, flawed, angry, real. Ayla blocked a psychic lance aimed for his chest. We are echoes, but we get to choose what to echo. She grabbed Ren's hand, and the 6 shards pulsed together. The core ignited. The echo screamed. Blue fire tore through the cathedral. The shards fused into a halo of light around Ren and Ayla. You were made in a lab, Ren said to the echo, but we were made in pain. And love, Ayla added, which is something you'll never understand. The echo cracked, literally, fractures of light splitting across its skin. It fell to its knees. If you reawaken Inthelian, it whispered, the whole galaxy changes. Good, Ren said. Let it change, Ayla echoed. They reached for the 7th shard. It let them touch it. It sang. When Ren and Ayla touched the 7th shard, the world responded, not with a noise but with silence so profound it broke time. The cathedral of memory vanished. The battleground collapsed. They stood in a void, not empty, but pregnant with potential. The seventh shard floated between them, now glowing with soft, prismatic light. "It's choosing," Ayla whispered. "Choosing what?" Ren asked. A new voice answered. "Whether you're worthy to awaken me." It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It wasn't synthetic. It was old. Light exploded. Memories flooded them. They weren't just watching, they were living them. A human and Xanturi standing hand in hand as stars were seeded with life. The first Communion Council formed, long before Earth had even launched its first orbital station. Peace spreading like wildfire, then fear creeping in, slow and insidious. Councils dividing, truths being hidden, memory edited. Then, the Great Schism, the breaking, the seven shards torn from Enthelian's mind, scattered to the winds of history. Ren screamed. Ayla cried without tears. The voice returned. "I was unity. You shattered me. Now you seek to rebuild." "We didn't shatter you," Ren said, gritting his teeth. "They did." "You may still carry the scars," Ayla whispered, "but we carry the memory." There was a pause, a long, terrible pause. "Then prove it." The void transformed. They stood in an infinite court of shifting forms. History, ideology, guilt, emotion. The trial of intention had begun. Enthelian summoned avatars of history. One, a Xanturi noble who watched her human partner executed for love. Two, a human general who ordered a purge of Xanturi enclaves out of fear. Three, a core acolyte who erased her own memories to remain pure. Each turned to Ren and Ayla, demanding judgment. What will you do differently? What makes you think your communion won't end the same way? Ren clenched his fists. Because we remember. We choose to remember. We choose to tell the truth, even when it hurts. Ayla stepped forward. We won't erase the past. We'll use it. We'll fucking learn from it. The avatars bowed and vanished. Enthelian whispered, "Then let me return." The shards spiraled together. The light around them turned from blue to white, not sterile, but alive. The void split open. They were standing again in the Vault of Origin, the oldest chamber beneath Syntrax, long hidden by myth. The seven shards embedded themselves into a central altar. The platform trembled. Mechanisms clicked for the first time in 5,000 years. A tall figure of pure light and circuitry rose from the floor, humanoid, yet abstract. Enthelian reborn. Its voice was no longer distant. It spoke with them, not to them. Together, we begin again. While Ren and Ayla awakened in Thalion, the surface of Syntrax boiled with tension. High Marshal Riven's fleet had arrived. Thousands of black-armored soldiers surrounded the ancient ruin. Lord Sizek, now revealed as a rogue faction leader, had declared martial law. No one gets in. If Enthelian awakens, the caste system falls. Sizek snarled, but it was already too late. The sky split open. 7 beams of light erupted upward from the core. Around the galaxy, sleeping shards embedded in ancient ruins began to glow. Old technology flickered to life. Memories long buried surged back into collective consciousness. The world changed. Ren and Ayla stepped from the vault, now surrounded by a radiant sphere of light. Enthelian's new form walked behind them, silent but felt. Every soldier dropped to their knees, not out of fear, but instinct. Even Sizek staggered back. "Impossible," he whispered. "We're not here to destroy you," Ayla said. "We're here to offer a future. One without caste," Ren added. "One with memory, with truth." Enthelian raised a hand. From every soldier, every drone, every ship, memories were restored. Centuries of erasure undone in a blink. Sizek screamed and fled. Enthelian turned to the galaxy, now watching, now awake. "This is not a command. It is a choice. Communion begins only if chosen. 1,000 worlds blinked, then one by one, Zanturi, human, hybrids, post-sentience, accepted. The communion rekindled, not by force, but by truth. The world didn't explode when Enthelion returned. It unfolded. Cities woke up. Buried structures hummed. Artifacts that had long been used as religious relics began transmitting again. The stars shimmered differently. And at the center of it all, Ren Kade and Ayla 17 stood hand in hand. The weight of history didn't crush them, it crowned them. The first communion couple in 5,000 years. The new council chamber was circular, transparent, floating above Syntrax's reborn skyline. The galaxy watched, tuned in by choice, not control. Ren stepped forward. No titles, no military insignias, just a flight jacket and a voice. I'm not royalty. I didn't come from some noble bloodline or optimization vat. I was just a broke pilot with a bad attitude and worse luck. But this moment isn't about where I started. It's about where we go from here, together. Ayla's voice followed. For generations, the caste divided us, fear ruled us, memory betrayed us. But now, our oldest truth has returned. Communion is not weakness, it's not compromise, it's strength through understanding. The chamber lit with thousands of signals of support, from Earth, from Zanturi homeworlds, even from stations lost in civil war. Of course, not everyone welcomed it. Lord Sizek, still in hiding, activated a last contingency, a doomsday AI buried beneath Titan core, a synthetic god, built to erase all impure convergence. Its name was Severus Protocol. It dropped from orbit like a sword of wrath, ripping through Syntrax's upper defenses. Entire districts lost power. Drones turned feral. The planet's crust began to fracture. Ren, Ayla, and Enthelion responded. They didn't fight it alone. They shared control of the communion link. For the first time in millennia, all 7 shards synchronized across species. Soldiers, engineers, children, all linked through Enthelion's neural song. Together, they sang a different algorithm, one of preservation, one of fusion, one of choice. Severus Protocol hesitated, then froze, then unraveled, code by code, into nothing. Sizek was captured not by force, but by his own people, those who had once feared the truth he tried to bury. The old laws were burned. Literally, the caste codex, once etched into titanium and placed at the heart of Zanturi law, was melted and reformed into a ring. Ren and Ayla exchanged it during the first official communion union ceremony, not as prince and princess, not as conqueror and concubine, but as 2 echoes, choosing each other again. The people didn't just cheer, they wept. The galaxy had changed. Children born of mixed lineages now populated every system, some with glowing circuitry under their skin, others with neural harmonics from birth. The Communion Council governed not from hierarchy, but from empathy. Enthelion no longer ruled. It guided, as a presence accessible by all, a shared memory bank. Ren never wore robes. He still hated ceremonies. He often snuck out of council meetings to test fly old warships or teach kids how to dogfight asteroids. Ayla built academies. She was more feared than ever, but now for her mind, not her bloodline. In the last scene, an old AI historian, eyes flickering with soft gold light, speaks to a room full of young sentients, human, Zanturi, and hybrid. You've heard the tales, the union of the first night, the pilot who stole the shards, the daughter who defied her caste. But what matters most is this. They didn't save the galaxy because they were destined. They did it because they chose each other. Again, and again, and again. He pauses. And now, it's your turn. Write the next communion. Not with prophecy, with courage. On a balcony overlooking a twin moon horizon, Ren wraps his arm around Ayla's waist. Her eyes flicker with soft white light. In her arms, she holds their newborn daughter, part human, part Xanturi, all future. You still think I'm beneath your caste? Ren teases. Ayla grins. There's no caste anymore. Ren, just us. He leans in, their foreheads touching. Below them, the 7 keystones pulse in harmony. Above them, the stars are no longer divided. They're shared, and they are just getting started, or perhaps the beginning.